Veterans are the lifeblood of American freedom, serving in some of the harshest situations to secure that freedom across the globe. This is the Lounge with Legends show, celebrating their transformation from battlefield to business. The Lounge with Legends show with Marty the Moac Martinez and James A. Phelps, a.k.a. Spartan 6.
You caught me looking down. I'm running around the house doing a bunch of stuff. What's going on today?
You have a big week coming up.
Yeah, we do. We have a real big week.
You have a big week.
Now we have a big week.
I have shit going on. What do you got, James? Tell us what you got. Are you ready for it?
So we'll be
Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
Answer
I haven't had enough coffee today. So
you haven't had shit. You're not ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. But Friday they're going to be speaking at the EXP. EXP is having their conference, their annual conference, EXPCon 2022 in Las Vegas this week. Most of the folks are flying out tomorrow. The remainder of us will show up. I'm going to show up Occupy by Force on Wednesday. So Wednesday morning I'll be arriving in Vegas, and then we will have an EXP celebration. The EXP launch, basically, it's not a launch, but we're going to talk about the EXP military network that they're doing some amazing things that we were asked to join and be a part of. So be doing the breakfast keynote there on Friday morning. So if you're in Vegas and you want to get up,
real quick, what is that? What is the EXP military network? What exactly? Let's unpack that real quick before we bring on Simon.
So the EXP,
like we all know about it. What is it?
Well, EXP, everyone knows about EXP. They have over 85,000 real estate agents worldwide. So the EXP military network is a community network focused in on the military family, military supporters, military veterans, military brats like you and I once were in our life. And what it is it's building a community together so we can actually foster a real estate experience using and leveraging our experiences from the military to actually succeed out here in real estate. That's the big picture of it. So it's actually going to be an organization that's not just about words, but it's about me.
So understanding that, it's, for people that are transitioning and looking for another community similar to what they came from, it's no wonder why they selected Spartan 6 to be the keynote speaker for EXP Military Network on Friday in Mandalay Bay.
Mandalay Bay, that's right.
Yeah. So that seems like a total no-brainer. Congratulations. We're excited to have you on here. Who's coming on the show today?
Man, we are bringing in a doctor today. We're bringing in a doctor or organizational leadership person, an author, a public speaker, and the CEO of Refund Wiz, the first AI/MI artificial intelligence app. And he's going to talk about his app and his smartphone app that's going to help folks file their taxes. That's your favorite word, right?
I'm excited for this. We've been talking about this for a minute. So I guess let's bring him on. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Simon, welcome. How are you doing?
I am doing really well. Thank you, first of all, for having me. Very grateful for this opportunity.
I appreciate it. You guys talk amongst yourself. I'll be right back. My dog is barking, and I don't want to interrupt the show.
Okay.
Hey, Simon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, James. How are you?
I'm blessed. I'm glad and grateful that we were able to finally get this scheduled and worked out so we could fit it in our schedules, our busy schedules, because you're doing a bunch of pitching. You're doing a bunch of presentations. You're creating an app. You're starting a company. You're doing everything all at the same time. So I don't know how you got us in, but I really appreciate that you're coming in and we can be able to share your story and share exactly what you're working on and be able to celebrate with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, Simon, you are doing a lot. Sorry about the interruption. My dog was barking. It was going to go on for the next hour if I did not let him out. So.
No, I get that. I have a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel called Winston.
Nice.
And so he can get needy at times. I get it.
Yeah. James is not a dog lover. James does not like dogs. He does not like animals.
Really?
Right.
Well, the truth be told, when I was 8 years old, actually I was 6 years old, I had a dog for 2 weeks. His name was RC. And I had the dog for 2 weeks. And then my mother was allergic to the dog, allergic to RC. So I had to give him back. So that was a traumatic event for me as a child. I was like, hey, look, I've been putting all in. I'm sitting there walking the dog, feeding the dog and everything else. And then I had to give it back because my mother was allergic to it. So I just realized that, I feel like an animal, dog, cat, or whatever, you treat them just as you would a human being or a child. So I was like, well, I don't want to expose myself to that pain again. So that's really the real reason why I don't have a dog.
Yeah. I mean, Marty, I don't know. I mean, James and I were at this function for the American Legion, and he seemed like he was an animal lover because he took to that prime rib like it was nobody's business.
Yeah, this is a different kind of animal. He likes to dance.
Yeah.
But awesome. So before we get into all the amazing stuff you're doing now, let's go back to the beginning. Who is Simon?
Wow, what a profound question. So, I think my genetic makeup is where I like to be of service. And when my family moved here from India, and I didn't get permission to join the Army after high school. So I did my bachelor's, put that checklist on that traditional Indian family. And then I enlisted and joined the Army because I wanted to serve the country that had offered me. To me, America, the definition of America is opportunity.
Nice.
Right. And so for me, it was a big deal to join, to serve. And that mentality started very early on. I mean, I remember in elementary school, I was doing these 17-mile, and I was a little guy, 17-mile. I'm still a little guy, height-wise, width-wise, I'm a bigger guy. But I used to do the 17-mile March of Dimes walks, year over year. And yeah, so I've continued that in terms of building organizations that have a combination of purpose and profit.
Yeah. So But there are a lot of different things that you could have done to, for opportunity and giving back. Why the Army instead of, police or fire rescue, any of these other kind of services? Why specifically the Army? And then why the Army over the other services?
Well, I mean, the Army, I wasn't a big water guy, so Navy, didn't resonate with me.
Right.
And for some reason, there's a part of me that's kind of like self-doubting. And so I thought I wouldn't be able to complete the Marine Corps boot camp. And Air Force didn't really appeal to me. So it kind of, I liked the, be that all that you can be slogan when I was being recruited or when I went through that process. And it was a higher calling, right? I'm also a student of languages. So I speak 6 languages. And so I went in as a military intelligence 97 Echo linguist interrogator, and I had a chance to learn Russian. Okay. And I was a big fan of Soviet studies and that whole Cold War era. I was very fascinated with all the nuances that went behind, the glasnost and, Gorbachev, sir, bring down that wall. That was very, very motivating to me. And actually in 1982, I went to Germany on a student exchange program, and with my host family, I had a very spirited conversation. And I spoke German fluently. And I said to them that wall is coming down in the next 10 years. And very shortly after that, the wall came down.
Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, a couple of things there. One, it would have been interesting to see you with a bachelor's educated guy in the Marines, known for eating crayons. So that would have been interesting. But but you served during an interesting time, right? Because you're doing Russian studies, and this is during the Cold War, height of the Cold War, right about, circa late 80s, early 90s.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're in the thick of it. I mean, everyone's like a peacetime army. I'm like, well, it depends what you consider, because every day we're at the brink of something. You just don't know.
Right. And then the foundation of everything is intelligence, right? Gathering intelligence, interpreting intelligence, and then communicating that is the most important part.
Right. Have you been to the International Spy Museum here in DC?
I have not. I haven't been to DC since I was a young lad in 1976.
So some things have changed since.
Yeah. Just a little.
You've got to come out here and check out the International Spy Museum, especially given your MOS and what you did. Let me know. I'll be your personal tour guide for it. My daughter loves it. We actually had her birthday there at the International Spy Museum, and they give them all the spy rings and the craft. And they're trying to find the mole. I was the mole. I was Agent Money. It was a double.
Were you really? Oh, that's awesome.
So
that's right up my alley.
They get to go through everything. The kids love it. I love it. I've been to, I don't know how many times. We're actually members of it. Yeah. But I think you would absolutely enjoy something like that.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of John le Carre novels. I mean, I've read them over and over again. The entire collection, everything that he has published, I've devoured.
Right. It's awesome. So how many years did you serve?
4 years.
4 years. Was it hard for you to leave, or was it just time, or was it kind of, hey, I did it and I'm good, or?
It was time. Russia became our friend, so the incentive for, re-enlisting wasn't quite there. Motor pool wasn't really a fun option to be in, 5 days a week. The rest of my pals were.
Yeah. No, I get
that. Yeah, it was good. But as far as the Army, you talked about, not choosing the Air Force. Honestly, truth in lending, I thought you had served in the Air Force. Because you said, I don't know, I made the assumption, what happens when you assume, but I said, doctor, he must have been in the Air Force. So that's really what I thought. But I mean, you say a lot of different things there as far as, your life experiences. What Well, first off, where did you serve in the Army? What post were you on?
So I did my basic at Fort Jackson, and then went to Defense Language Institute for Russian, and then Fort Huachuca, and then ended up at Fort Benning.
Nice. So you saw all the best posts in America.
Oh man, I have to tell you something. Fort Huachuca is, as a strategist, it's one of the most well-placed forts that we have.
Yeah.
And once you get out of Fort Huachuca, Sierra Vista is like a beautiful little hamlet.
Yeah, it's a nice area. My brother's been there.
Yeah.
So Fort Benning, yeah, that was what year did you get out?
97.
97. Okay, yeah. So I'd been through Benning a couple of times by that point. I came in 92, so I spent a couple of years there in Fort Benning School for Boys, Wayward Youth, as we called it.
That's right.
They wouldn't allow me down there yet. I was in Fort Knox in 1997, so I was going up there for a basic camp for ROTC in 1997. So we are not much different in age.
Simon, what did your folks say when you told them I'm going in the Army to be a linguist? I already speak several languages. I'm going to go be something else.
Yeah. So in my family, I'm definitely the black sheep, right? My older brother knew in 5th grade not only that he wanted to be a doctor, but he wanted to be a cardiologist. And so by all terms and definitions, I'm still growing up trying to figure out what I want to do in life. So it didn't come as a complete surprise, since I'd introduced that idea 4 years earlier, and they thought maybe that I'd outgrown that notion. Mm-hmm. Little did they know that I basically appeased them and said, "Okay, I'll go get my bachelor's, and now I'm more so independent to do what I want."
Right.
Yeah, but they were very pleased after all of that, and they saw what it meant for me, and at my core core, right, in my heart, I wanted to serve, and that would bring me peace and contentment, that I would be able to give, whatever that duration was at that time for me, that's what I was going to do.
Right.
Yeah. So the support came very quickly after they saw the conviction.
Yeah. And that usually happens. I had similar. I told my mom and them I was going to the Army, and they're like, "No, you're not." And I did. And then, and afterwards, it's one of my mom's proudest things that her son served in the military. So you get out of the military, then what do you do?
So I get out of the military, and I joined a former well-known telecom company called MCI.
Okay.
And it was just on that cusp of where Windows 97 was coming out, consumer PCs were coming out, and I was introduced to technology, and they had a kind of a veteran hiring program, and they brought me on as a customer service representative answering technical support questions for Packard Bell computers.
Okay.
Wow.
And I quickly was promoted, and later on moved to a small town in Kentucky called Winchester, Kentucky, where we're building a brand new call center. And one of the personal challenges that I was also at that time going through, kind of twofold. When you separate from the military, there's a sense of comfort that you know where you go for certain things. It's a very structured life. Mm-hmm. And the rewards and the recommendations, the commendations are there. And when you are no longer in that military structure, handling that freedom was very difficult for me. Was very much a challenge for me. And so, it seems like it was only 4 years, but that 4 years really created a whole new version of Simon, right? And so I got into a little bit of trouble. And then looking back, it kind of started at the tail end of my Army life. I got involved in alcohol. And that really just took an incredible hold on me. And then my spiral downward, took me to the point where I was eventually homeless until January 25th, 2003. I was a homeless vet in Southern California, in Anaheim, California.
Wow. Yeah. And then we see a lot of that. I mean, unfortunately, we see a lot of that going into alcohol, regardless of which era you served in the military, whether you were Vietnam vet or the Cold War, the interwar period, the GWAT, and so one, congrats for making it out of that. I mean, you seem like you're doing well. And what's the one thing that you tell people that you find, like if you come across a vet that you see in this place, what's the biggest thing of advice you tell them?
Yeah. So, what subsequently happened after I sobered up is that I started my own subacute residential dual diagnosis substance abuse program. So through my own journey, I realized that I was suffering from kind of situational depression. I was kind of lost with the military. You put on your fatigues, you have a very structured daily schedule. And when I started that, one of my mission was to one person a quarter to try to help another veteran on the streets who was ready to transform, as I was. And so when I see somebody asking for money, what I'll typically do is I'll say, let's go grab lunch. Let's talk. Because I think that human connection was missing. The camaraderie was missing. Once you get separated, you lose all those bonds that you had made that you see every day in the barracks, right? Mm-hmm. And so that loneliness really starts to kick in, very early on. And so, I made it my mission was to seek out veterans who are ready, willing to make that change. Not just look for a 30-day place to dry out and stay off the streets, but really make that transformative change. And so that was one of the main goals behind starting the Drug and Alcohol Rehab Center. That we don't have to be chained to our thoughts. We have to decouple ourselves from our fears. We have to decouple ourselves from our perception of self. We have to decouple ourselves from how we perceive what others may or may not think of us.
Right.
That's huge. And it's to have that hard discussion with somebody is difficult, but then also very needed at the same time,
It is.
And I think it's huge that you can actually speak from experience. I think a lot of folks, during that transition part, every one of us have a different transition. I mean, I don't care who you are. There's some similar stories, but they end up being our own individual story when it comes down to that transformation post-military. So, just being able to have that in your kit bag that you can use to help others. That's what really inspired me and gravitated me toward you, Simon. Because you can sense that when you're around, when you're in your presence, you can sense that you're the genuine, hey, I want to help others.
Yeah.
So, I think it's very powerful. I appreciate what you're doing. Are you still doing that here locally, what you were doing in California, or what are you doing now with that? Are you still helping veterans with that?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime I get a chance, whether, this disease has no boundaries, right? Doesn't care what color, creed, background, education, wherever you come from, this disease can get a hold of you, right? And so I make myself available to put my hand out there anytime anyone calls or is asking for help. I'm always available. I've gotten calls even now I get calls at 11:30, 1:30 in the morning, and I pick up that phone because that is the most critical moment when that phone rings and I pick it up, that I make that contact.
Mm-hmm. that's part of the battle. Just knowing someone is on the other line there to help, help that's there with you. Marty and I get this quite often, to be, honest with you, because with Lounge with Legends, there's many of nights we'll get a message DM direct in a Facebook Messenger. Hey, right. Are you up? Hey, having a rough night? Right. Those responses, if you're able to, see them and respond immediately, that's where you make the impact. That's where you can make a difference.
Absolutely.
Or on the other side of it, you sense like a disturbance in the force, and you're like, you know what? I haven't reached out to Simon in a while. Let me reach out. And I've done that and received thanks for reaching out. You don't know how much that meant to me. Are you good? Yeah, I was just going through some shit, but that really just your text meant a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to reply to text. I mean, that's happened. Last week I was in the middle of something and I had a pitch competition coming up and I was refining my deck, and I got a call from somebody and I looked at it like 3 rings. I'm like, I know this person is going to want my help, and it's going to be probably a 15 to 30 minute call. And the competition was starting in exactly 30 minutes. And I had to reframe. I said, what is my purpose here? My purpose is not to win the pitch competition. My purpose is to help another human being. And so I went ahead, I took that call, offered that support the best way I could, and then went on to the pitch competition, and it went remarkably well. I mean, I won't know what the outcome is, but that entire day for me, actually, the next couple of days, I was like I was on cloud 9, because I got to be of service at that very essential moment for that person.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much.
No, but because it is difficult, because I've been in those moments where you see the call and you're like, oh, and it's not Simon's calling, he's going to need something. It's, am I ready to go down this road? Because you get emotionally invested and you're going down there, but there's a reason that they are calling you. And like you said, I'm here, I'm helping another human. I'm helping a battle buddy. I'm helping somebody.
Exactly.
So it is taxing, but it's needed. And if somebody has the has the need so much that they're willing to call out, then who am I not to answer? And so it's great. I applaud you for that. Our goal is to help one veteran a day, and that's it's hard. It really is.
It is hard. It is hard. And sometimes, most often, and I've had these calls where they'll call me back in a couple of years and say, it was that call that planted the seed. I wasn't ready yet to quit, but now I'm, coming up on 6 months of recovery, right? And so, but I'll get those calls saying that started something, and that became that just one seedling, and then it eventually that resonated with them throughout the rest of their drinking career to say, okay, I need to make that change.
Right.
That's what started the snowball.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the thing. You never know. Sometimes we never will know the impact that you have. So, I mean, just the fact that you're putting yourself out there to try to make a difference, setting that expectation of, hey, look, I need to be of service and help others. That's all that we can really control. We can't control the result or what happens, but just, the expectation, the conditions. But, thinking back about to when you were homeless, Simon, was there a moment when you were homeless that you told yourself, hey, look, I got to help myself? How did you get out personally? How did you get out of that situation yourself?
Yeah. So I had to come to this understanding that there's got to be a better way of living. My way isn't working. Right. And so, when you get to that moment where you hit and each person has this own moment of a recollection of saying, okay, this is my bottom. This is where I have to put a stop to this. So this physical bottom, financial bottom, spiritual bottom, there's a medical bottom, legal bottom, whatever it is for each person, they kind of come to that moment and say, there's got to be a better way of doing this. And so that night was my moment where I said, this is the last night I really want to live like this. And then I went ahead and I went into a substance abuse treatment program.
That reminds me of Philip Nathrams, and he got to that point, and he was at a point, but then what stopped him was he wanted to see what was on the season finale of Law and Order, and and then he kept going. He was like, it was just the dumbest thing, and it turned out it was a rerun, right, James? And so it was just so funny. So, but you hit that bottom, you have to figure out, and sometimes you hit that bottom a couple different times. It just might be mentally, it just be mental exhaustion or stress of everything going on. And oh, by the way, you can still be living comfortably, but you're at wit's end. So that the bottom is like, Simon, there's different things that you define. You never know which one's going to trigger.
Right.
No, right. That's huge. You were going to say something, or James?
No, I was just, you brought up Philip. I was going to mention the same exact thing, because it just, it shows that each one of us have, like you said, a different thing that's going to be that mechanism that's going to get us awake, wake us up, bring us to the light, so to speak. So
it does. And it's a combination of, it has to be a perfect timing of two things. There's an element of, I have to accept that I'm powerless over this thing, right? Whatever that thing is, like alcohol or drugs. And then I have to accept that, my life is unmanageable, right? And so when both of those two things it's kind of the perfect constellation, when both of those two things happen at the same time, that is when that the person starts to, one of the things I'm working on, and it is another book on, it's called A Theory of You, right? It's actually, there's a theory of you written, but I'm taking that same principle, but applying it to addiction, that you keep going down that first leg of that U until you hit that bottom. And then you can go on the upside of that letter U, right? Mm-hmm. And so for each person, that downward spiral is their own journey. And then that bottom is their own journey. And then the upward spiral has also its own challenges, which I face with, my God, the imposter syndrome. Like, do I deserve these good things that are happening to me? And those thoughts alone can be so overwhelming because of all the negative things I may have done during my spiraling down. And that becomes an incredible barrier to success, right? It's a sense of self-worth.
Sorry, I keep muting myself so those that aren't tracking, this has been filmed and it's Columbus Day. And so I have both kids home and the dog. So upstairs, it is like a lucha libre
very
match.
Cool.
But as you were saying, you have this guilt for the things that you have done, and then sometimes the survivor's guilt, and all these things contribute to the imposter syndrome of going, why me? Why did I get selected for it? It's very cool, but am I really the right person for this?
Right.
Why would they listen to me?
Right.
And so how do you overcome that?
Yeah, so it's a moment of reflection again, on reflecting on why me. Why me is because I've gone through that journey, and I can be my stories that at the moment in time where black marks are not my assets. So when somebody comes to me and says, hey, you know what, I got a DUI, and I'm like, okay, that's okay. I've been through that. I've been through that. But now that drinking and driving isn't a good thing. And so how do we turn that into a positive, how your story can now influence others behind you, those lives that you're going to touch? Yeah. And that it's a very fluid process of that whole you concept.
And so James and I use that with our marketing, with story brand stuff that we do. We call that coming in with empathy and authority, because I've been there. Simon, I got a DUI as well. I know what it feels like. I know what drove me to the bottle, to led me to the decision to think I was okay to drive home, and I got busted, and how it feels now. But guess what? I got through it, and so can you. But here's what you have to do, and here's the sobering reality, and you got to do this.
Right.
That's the empathy with the authority of what you got to do, and it's going to happen again if you don't start doing it now.
Guaranteed.
Right.
Guaranteed.
And so that goes back to that hard discussion that we talked about 20 minutes ago, is having those discussions. And you're able to do that because you've turned those black marks into a success, which is now part of your story. So you come in with so much empathy.
Absolutely.
It makes sense. A lot of people come to you.
It is. And it is that connection where, the analogy I use is that, I could study being an OBGYN, right? But I will never know what a female goes through when she is delivering that baby, that whole 9-month period. It's experiential, right? And so that's how, one recovered alcoholic can talk to somebody that's seeking recovery, because it's experiential. We understand the fears. We understand how that alcohol is the security blanket, and you want to take that away from me? Are you kidding me? Right.
No, absolutely. Hadn't thought of it that way. It's pretty, that credibility that you've established allows for frank conversation within your community or with those people, kind of giving that connection.
And when I had that drug and alcohol rehab center, I hired clinical team. One particular person, she didn't have that background, so she was not an alcoholic or an addict. And all the residents, the feedback they said is, I can't do one-on-ones with her because I just can't imagine how she would be able to understand what I'm going through. And so, we quickly shifted gears and, basically hired someone to replace her who was 28 years in recovery, also had the academic credentials as well as the experiential credentials, the street cred.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, you have to be in that hole. You had to have been there yourself. And a lot of folks, we try to solve people's problems. Doctors going to throw medication at you. Psychiatrists are going to throw stuff at you. But it takes that person that's actually been in that hole. And it was on The Punisher. I don't know if you ever watched Marvel. It was an episode on their first episode. They talk about a soldier in a hole. That's exactly what that is. Right. And, it's that transition too. I see a lot of folks, this might not be popular with a lot of people, but I see a lot of people that want to help veterans with that transition and transformation post-military, but yet they haven't even transitioned or transformed themselves. So they start that company that helps transition and find jobs for vets. Well, how many jobs did you lose?
Exactly.
How many jobs did you leave? How many relationships did you break up? How many, during that process? If you say zero, to me, it's like, okay, what kind of credibility do you really have?
Right.
So I think that's a great point.
Spot on. So, I exited from that. And what I discovered when I was running my drug and alcohol rehab center is that, especially dual diagnosis, where they have, co-occurring disorders like anxiety, PTSD, right? Depression, is that outside of that treatment center, everyone was suffering. And the way our healthcare system works is that it's a random mom, let's say, she gets a call from the principal's office. And by the time she can create an appointment for herself and for her offspring, son, daughter, whatever, it's about 3 weeks out. In the meantime, she goes to her friends and family and starts soliciting some advice on how to handle a situation. And they're not trained for that. And that only adds to the problem. And so that led to me creating an app called HelpMeNow. And that was on-demand mental health.
Right.
And so that matched up somebody that needed help in the moment. You can jump into a conference room, go to your car, launch the app, and find a therapist of your choosing.
Yeah, I mean, that's in that moment during the crisis, that's not the time to come up with a plan. That's not the time to download the app. It's that, you need to already have the app downloaded.
That's right.
The crisis plan already developed and established. Right. And, that's what a lot of us, we fail to have the plan before the crisis.
Right.
So that's a great app. So are you still, you're no longer doing that app, right?
No, exited that app and then went on to do some really cool things. With a physician named Dr. Tamer Rezik, we launched a medical TV talk show, a live TV talk show. And that was produced by Coptic Christians who spoke Arabic. That was worldwide. And we grew that. It was on every Sunday from Fountain Valley, California. And we grew that to 2 to 3 million viewers on a weekly basis from zero. And we had, we started off with addiction campaign, then we went on a mental health campaign, and then diabetes and all the other things that come up with that. And then from during that same time, I was also asked to collaborate on a book on diversity and inclusion. And so had that book published, and then that resulted in doing some consulting work for a Google Cloud platform. They were taking some hits on the D&I side. And so, worked on that project with them for a while.
Let's cut to commercial and really talk about all these pitches that you've been doing.
For sure.
That's pretty interesting. We hadn't even gotten into that yet. We've been talking about all the previous stuff, which is amazing, and what we do on the show, but I really want to unpack that. So let's do that. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're watching the Lounge with Legends TV show with your hosts, Marty Martinez and James A. Feltz.
All right, welcome back. Actually, James, let's talk real quick. What's going on with you again? What do you got going on this week?
So this week we'll be in I knew you were setting me up for something. we do need to show Simon's Refund Wiz short clip, though. That'd be a great opportunity right now to show that.
I totally forgot that was on. Yeah, let's show that to set this up. All right, Simon, we're going to do that real quick.
We don't eat, communicate, play, or work like our grandparents. So why are we still doing taxes like them? After all, none of us want to spend our time in a tax office, take off work to get taxes done, learn how to use the tax software, and we certainly don't want to be surprised after using a tax software program that comes with a $100 fee per year. There's good news. Introducing Refund Wiz, a DIY tax app that uses AI and machine learning to digitally file taxes. With Refund Wiz, I just take pictures of my documents, and that's it. They do the rest for me. It's like depositing a check using my smartphone, all for just $25.
Wow. That's a teaser. So $25, I get all this done. If you're looking for it, we're going to talk about it, but I'm going to put it up here. So if people are looking for it, it's refundwiz.com. How did this come to you?
So this is a pretty cool story. So I've done all this, wonderful, I've had a blessed life, right? Did the medical TV talk show, did the book, worked at Google, and then I quote unquote retired. And then my wife and I moved to Texas, and it took her 21 days when she came to me and said, "You got to do something, man. You got to, I don't care. Go to Waffle House, Walmart, be a greeter, but you need to do something." So on my news feed, H&R Block's income tax course was there. And I'm like, you know what? Our tax situation is simple. And I'm tired of paying egregious amounts for doing our taxes. I said, let me take that course. So I took the course. And then after you pass the final exam, then they make you an offer. And then they saw my CV and they're like, wow, you have management experience. We'd like to get you into management. And I said, no. I said, I'm retired. This is only supposed to be for 3.5 months until I figure out what's next. They said, yeah, exactly. It's 3.5 months. And then I got the first managerial, and then they promoted me again to a higher level. And I said, this is 3.5 months. Absolutely. Well, that was the year that COVID started, and that tax office was open full year. And so I said, okay, well, I'm done and I got to figure out what I'm going to do. And they said, well, come back this year. It won't, I promise you, Congress won't push back the date. That was a once in a lifetime one-off situation. And I said, all right, I believe that. I'll buy into that. So I signed up again. And well, the next year we had the big storm in Texas and there were other issues going on. So the IRS's filing date was pushed back again. So during this time, my team had the area of Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and Austin. And one of the things I was noticing is that when Hispanic single filers or couples and families were coming into these offices, countless number of times, and even I did it when I was visiting an office or, overseeing, managing that office, no habla español. And they're like, well, where's the nearest, Spanish-speaking tax preparer? I said, well, it's like 50 miles down the road. That's one way. And I just felt so horrible. And again, that feeling of, being of service, it just didn't sit well with me. And so I, kind of took a couple of different ideas to H&R Block. And I thought, well, maybe if I applied for a higher level, manager role, then maybe that'll be my avenue to execute these ideas. Well, they didn't want anything of that. And so kind of left H&R Block and took some time to reflect on, how can I help all these people? And then I started putting together data and the fact that there's 62 million Hispanics. Then I found out that there's fewer than 10,000 Spanish speaking trained preparers. And then as I'm driving around now, I'm seeing these, the cash advance places, the same day, payday cash advance places, they're doubling up as tax preparation centers, and the majority of the Hispanics get a refund. And then there's also 10 million Hispanics that don't have a bank account. So either they got to wait for that check in the mail, and even right now, IRS is behind, I think, almost 1 million returns from 2021. And so either they got to wait for that check, or they got to walk into one of these places that offers a refund advance loans where they're charging 36 to 86% interest rates. I mean, unheard of predatory lending practices, right? And then so during this downtime, I'm taking classes in coding just online, and I'm like, I got to be able to come up with an easier mousetrap, right? You got to be an easier way to do this. Then I'm talking to Gen Zs, and I'm like, hey, a back of a napkin idea. Like, what if I came up with an app that you can just use your phone, just like you're depositing a check? Would you adopt that kind of technology? And they were absolutely like, sign me up, man. If I don't have to walk into an office and listen to some old guy telling me I'm not saving enough money, and I don't have to go to my parents who are going to get into my financial business, and I certainly don't want to sit in front of a laptop for 8-9 hours trying to figure out what goes on line 7. And then it's circular logic, all those IRS forms. And they're like, yeah, we don't even care if we owe money, but if you can do this by using our app and I can do it at 1 a.m. while I'm streaming something and just take a couple of pictures, I'm all in. And then that led to other ideas like, this app can be used by the military. So I'm doing coding right now that we can give this to active duty military. Because remember, I went in after my bachelor's degree. So I'm hanging out with 18-year-olds, had no clue what DFAS is sending them, what to do with the W-2. And then you're TDYing. And I'm like, this is kind of the perfect solution that we can give this and, bring this in the hands of the military. And then other use cases came up, senior citizens. And I remember, sons and daughters saying, I got a power of attorney. I'm doing my taxes for my dad. Because in America, there's 2 things that are certain in our life: death and taxes, right? Doesn't matter. If we could go through inflation, recession, you could be unemployed, you could be on Social Security, you got to file your taxes as long as you're alive. And so that was kind of, all these things kind of came together. And I said, okay, so now let's see if the technology can meet the task.
I don't know. Wow. I mean, so basically you started a retirement hobby and turned it into an app that's turned it into a company that's turned it into pitch contests that turned it into this big machine that it is now.
Yeah. Yeah. It just, I had no idea where this was headed at that, certainly, I mean, everyone was surprised because I absolutely hated doing taxes. So all my friends tell me, you're doing what? Like I mean, you have a healthcare background, you have a technology background. And so now you're having a complete right turn from the Substance Abuse Center to the HelpMeNow on-demand mental health app to taxes. What? Yeah.
Well, you just announced your one for maybe the Department of Defense or something. Marty and I would love to be somehow connected with you on that one. But anyway, that's a sidebar conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This, you know, the saying is it takes a village to raise a child. Now we want to empower this entire community, right? They're completely underserved. Their financial illiteracy rates are high because oftentimes, more than 85% of the time, the same demographic groups that gets a refund year over year, they get monster-sized refunds. It's very common to see them get $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 refund checks. And I try to tell them that, look, you guys are using Uncle Sam as a savings account. What you need to do is adjust your W-4. And they're just looking at me with this glazed look and saying, you can actually pocket this money so you're not living so hard, you know, paycheck to paycheck and thinking you got to go get a second job or a third job to make ends meet, you know? And so there's tremendous opportunity to transform this demographic group in our lifetime. And it can be done, you know, very easily, right? I mean, the tax season is short, the revenue cycle is short. And so we can see not only that return on investment, we can see the return on the spiritual investment, the transformation that we can participate in.
Right. So you have a big pitch contest coming up, I think, at the end of this month.
I do.
So how can our listeners help support you during that pitch contest and get you so you can Refund Wiz can get to where it needs to be so it can help millions and millions of folks?
Yeah, so the Veterans Fund is having a pitch contest right in the middle of the Military Influencer Conference, and I think both of you gentlemen are going to be there for that. Is that right? Or at least I know James, you're going to be there. Marty's going to be there. Awesome.
I'm volunteering Marty to show up and represent. I got to go to Vegas this week,
so might as well stay there, man. Have a good time.
If you talk to Household 6 and ask her for permission, then we can work on that.
Oh, got it. So there is a command of Spartan 6. Is that correct?
Yes, and it's not me.
Very cool. Yeah, so the Veterans Fund is having a pitch competition. I think we started with over 180 applicants, and then there were 12 or 24. I can't remember now because I have a couple of pitch competitions going on concurrently, and so I passed. I made it to the semifinal round, and now we're in the final round. There's an Elite 5, and all other founders have some really great projects and great companies going on. So it's going to be definitely competitive and yet friendly. I know a couple of the founders. I've met with them a couple of times before. So it's going to be very competitive and very friendly at the same time. So looking forward to that. That's at the tail end of October. Then the Transatlantic Angel Conference. Looking to hear if I'm on to the semifinal round. We'll hear about that. And that has a prize amount of up to $250,000, I believe. And the Veterans Fund is $100,000. So, all of this is really to raise funds so that we can add product features and then get the message out into the Hispanic Latino community initially, right? Yeah. This app is in English also. So it's natively built in Spanish. It's actually natively built in Spanglish. It's very light and easy to use. It's available right now in both Android and Apple Play stores. I mean, technically, anyone in America can download this app. Right now, just for easy deployment, since I've been bootstrapping this thing, we're launching this in 9 states. And the 9 states that we've picked are the ones that don't have a state income tax filing requirement. So this is for federal tax filing, one set of codes, single filers on W-2. I've done the coding now for married filing jointly. And so we'll be able to launch that. Again, stick to that narrow, land and expand concept. And then eventually listen to the marketplace and see, which direction of the iteration for Refund Wiz 2.0 is. Do we add the 1099s, the head of households, we can kind of switch minorities and go into the other minorities that also struggle with English as a second language. I mean, who understands IRS language? I mean, you need at least 3 or 4 dictionaries just to figure out what they're trying to say. And this is from someone that's, explored getting a master's and doctorate, and it's still difficult to understand.
That is amazing. I know it's helping many, many people that that are getting ripped off. I mean, you said it perfectly, right? And people are taking advantage of. And again, you're coming in and helping with that service mindset. And I love it. And I think that's the perfect segue into our Freedom Means moment. So I think people already know that you've served, you've sacrificed, you've done so much, and you continue to do so much to serve people. Yeah. And so we ask you, Simon, what does freedom mean to you?
Yeah, what a deep and thoughtful question. And it's evolved over time. And after, I got sober and I started going down the path of recognizing what my purpose is. What resonates with me most is the Nelson Mandela quote, which is, to be free is not merely to cast off one's own chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. And that, to me today, is mental health freedom, financial freedom, and the combination of that is really creating mental wealth for this very hardworking demographic group, right? I mean, politics aside, forget that. There's just a very hardworking demographic group that, like me, have come to this country for a shot at a better quality of life. And fighting for their freedom is like the most paramount thing. I already know this is going to make lots of money. That's a done deal. It's just how many people can we help influence is the mission.
Wow. I love it. I mean, really, it resonates so well, because there is, how many people can we help? How many people can we reach out to that sometimes don't even know that they need help, right? Or that there's help out there. So I appreciate it. This has been a wonderful episode. Again, I'm going to put it up so everyone, in case you didn't catch it, here is refundwiz.com. Go check it out, refundwiz.com. And here you are on LinkedIn. And so connect with you. Appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you for being our legend.
Thank you for having me. It's such a wonderful treat to even be considered to be on this podcast. I'm deeply grateful.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you. And I'm going to put you in the green room real quick while James and I close this out.
So, cool. Thanks.
James, that was huge, man.
Yeah, Simon's doing some amazing things. And he's exactly like he is in person. I've had the honor to meet him here in Raleigh. It's just amazing to see the power of what you could do when you're retired. I didn't realize he was retired, but anyway.
No, absolutely, man. And there's people that are in need, and it's okay to ask for help. We do it all the time. And so, speaking of ask for help, you guys can support us out there by going to our Patreon page, and you can donate this way. You can always like and subscribe to our channel. And if you're watching this on Facebook, continue to send the stars. It always helps us put on quality show and up our game with our videos and stuff like that. So, and then go, say your prayers, keep your good thoughts out there for James this week. He's doing some amazing work helping other veterans in the EXP. He's going to be hanging out with Grant Cardone and all these other big wigs. So
we'll see if he says hello.
You'd be like, Marty who? No, I'm kidding. But so appreciate everybody out there. And what else you got, James?
No, just be safe travels to you as well this week. And thank you for supporting us, everyone. And go and help Simon during this pitch in Vegas this week or this month, and support him and what he's doing and amazing things that he's doing.
Outstanding. All right. Thank you. Be legendary.
You've been watching the Lounge with Legend show, countering the narrative that veterans are all broken misfit toys. Veterans are the lifeblood of American freedom. Serving in harsh situations, coupled with their training, have forged them into some of the most resilient and capable leaders in the world. And that's where we come in, celebrating the success stories, taking you on a journey of transformation from military to business. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back soon. But find us on Facebook at Lounge with Legend or at JTF214. Till next time.